guest, welcome. We're so excited to have you as part of the NatureKids community, and we'll hope that you'll think about joining us as a member in the future. I'm going to be recording this session, so if you are uncomfortable with that, please just turn your cameras off. And if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat, and Corbin will be monitoring the chat through the presentation, and there'll be lots of time for questions. So we'll make sure that we get to as many of them as we can. And finally, we're going to play a game a little bit later on. So if you are able to get a second device, a phone or a tablet maybe, we're going to give you a link a bit later on in the presentation, and you'll be able to join and to play this interactive game that we're going to have. So I think that's it for me. I'm going to turn things over to Nick and Corbin. Welcome. We're really excited to be all together today.
Thanks so much, and hi everyone. My name is Corbin Manson. I am a youth facilitator with the volunteer program here at the Invasive Species Council of BC, and I want to hand it over to my colleague Nick to introduce himself as well.
Hi everyone, thanks for having us today. My name's Nick, and I'm the research and projects coordinator with the Invasive Species Council, and we're sort of all over the province, but Corbin and I are both in Vancouver.
Awesome. I'm going to jump right into our presentation here, so just bear with me while I pull that up. Oops, it covered up my Zoom screen. Okay, Zoom. So we're here today to talk to you about invasive species, but also what did the beetle, the crab, and the hornet have in common? Can everyone see the screen share all right? I'm seeing some thumbs up, that's great. Okay, let's dive right into it. What is an invasive species? So this is a question to the group. Please drop your answers in the chat or feel free to unmute as well. Has anyone encountered invasive species, or does anyone know what invasive species are? You might be a little early in the presentation. Get you all warmed up and ready to participate. We definitely like to do a bit more of an interactive presentation. That's why we have the games as well. So if you're not comfortable speaking or sharing, no problem, but please feel free to weigh in. Maybe I had too much coffee this morning. So we'll move on then to me giving you the answer. And the way that we talk about invasive species is really important. Oh, it looks like we've got something in the chat here. Okay, Ella and Pippa, a species that don't belong in an ecosystem and take it over. That's a great answer. And there's two elements to that answer. And so don't belong is a bit of a value judgment, but or to say, you know, whether something does or does not belong is difficult, but whether it's originally from a place or not. And so you can see on the screen here, we've got this word introduced. And so that's the first part of what makes an invasive species, is that it's come from somewhere else and it's been brought to an ecosystem where it hasn't been for very long. The other element is the taking over, which thanks Ella and Pippa, and that's the sort of weedy or destructive pest aspect of invasive species too. So we'll cover both of those, but in order to understand what makes an invasive species, it's useful to understand what native species are. And so a native species is something that's been in an area for a long time and it's naturally occurring. The example that we're using here today is poutine. Poutine would be a native species in Canada, but if you go down to the United States and you order a poutine, it's more of an introduced dish. And so now that we know what a native species is, and oh, by the way, yeah, certain things like the Douglas fir tree, or you know, our orcas, our killer whales, those are native too, but poutine's a good example. So moving on then to non-native, this is that introduced element. So it's brought to a new ecosystem, and that may be on purpose or it might be accidentally, but typically it's brought to a new ecosystem by people. And so let's take a look at the example of the American bullfrog. This occurs in the southeastern United States. So you can see on the map, that's North America with the red blob in it. And that red blob is covering, Texas and Florida up into New York State and I don't know, maybe Maine, or my geography is not strong enough to explain this map perfectly. But anyhow, this frog is found natively. It has been in that area for thousands or even tens of thousands of years. And over time, it's been spread by people. And so these arrows show that it was spread west, it was spread north, into South America, into Europe, and into Asia as well. And so in those places, it is considered either introduced, or if it is destructive and causing problems, considered invasive. Here's another one. This isn't an animal anymore, or a amphibian, but this is a plant, the Himalayan blackberry, also known as Rubus armeniacus. And this, we believe, originated sort of in Central Asia and has since spread just about everywhere. So I think if you live in the Lower Mainland or on Vancouver Island, then you are pretty familiar with blackberry bushes. You might have seen them before. And they tend to just cover everything. So they're a very strong candidate for being invasive, because when blackberry moves in, a lot of native species move out. So just because something is introduced doesn't mean that it's invasive, right? We talked about bullfrogs and blackberry being spread, which is the introduced part, but then it's how they behave once they're spread that determines whether or not they're invasive. So seeing these tomatoes here, has anyone tried to grow tomatoes at home, or does anyone know anyone with some tomato plants? And can you imagine those tomato plants, you plant some seeds on your patio, and then you come back next year and everywhere around your patio is taken over by tomatoes? Doesn't sound very likely to me. Tomatoes tend to require a lot of tender love and care in order to grow. And Rebecca, says, yummy. I know, it would be great if they would just grow on their own and you could go out in the park and harvest tomatoes. But so they're introduced to North America, but they require support to survive and thrive here. They don't do okay on their own. So that's why they're introduced, but not invasive. And I wanted to thank Tanae, sorry if I mispronounced your name as well. We've got a great summary of what invasive species. And the Burmese python being thrown into the Everglades is a great example. Maya, Gabriel, and Edwin said they had some volunteer tomatoes, which is actually really exciting. Congratulations. I guess maybe the chickens are fertilizing the area out there, and so the tomatoes have a bit of an easier time. But I will say that's the first time I've heard of someone having volunteer tomatoes. That's great. Okay, I'm just going to switch over to a short video here, and this will probably explain invasive species even better than I can. Here it is. Let me know if the volume's okay.
Invaders! Not the space alien variety, but the uninvited plants, animals, and other organisms that arrive and cause harm in British Columbia. These plants and animals are called invasive species. Invasive species can be pretty, cute, and even cuddly, but when they enter and stay, they impact our environment, economy, and people in British Columbia. Invasive species threaten our native plants and animals by competing for food, water, and space, damaging habitat, and sometimes eating our native species, even babies. Invasive species affect the economy, for example, impacting fisheries and forest production, and reducing grazing land and crop yields. Invasive species also affect us by damaging the places where we live, work, and play. Some invasive species bite, prickle, and even cause allergic reactions. Invasive species are introduced by us, humans. The good news? Everyone can help reduce invasive species by doing things like cleaning, draining, and drying our boats, growing non-invasive plants in our gardens, not releasing unwanted pets or animals into the wild, and helping remove invasive plants. And everyone can spot and report invasive species in British Columbia. Let's stop the invasion.
Excellent. So one of the things that stands out to me about that video, and I'm not sure if anyone else noticed it, but who knew that we had native turtles and invasive turtles here in BC? I thought that's really neat. Down in the Lower Mainland, there's a couple of parks which are designated as habitat for the native Western painted turtle. So I encourage you to go and Google that. That's a beautiful turtle. Myself and Nick, we work for an organization known as the Invasive Species Council of BC. And the council is the largest invasive species charity in Canada, or provincial invasive species charity, I should say. We focus on lots of different things. Things like this is education and outreach. So we want to reach different communities and different groups of people and teach them about invasive species. We also train people, like if you're working in forestry, a bit of training about how to reduce the impact of invasive species can go a long way. And because invasive species don't respect borders, they grow right across the border without a passport, working within or between communities, so between provinces and between countries, is really important as well to limit the spread and to prevent introductions of invasive species. We do, you may know this already, but we actually do online training, and we've got lots of other online training options as well. The logos you see across the bottom of the screen here are different behavior change programs too. And so if you are a gardener or someone in your family is, PlantWise is a great resource. If you are into aquatics, then check out Clean, Drain, Dry. If you have pets, don't let it loose. If you like camping and hiking, Play, Clean, Go, and also remember not to move firewood. So I would explain all of these to you, but we're gonna have to keep moving along here. It's time for our first quiz of the day, actually. So if you haven't taken a moment to get a second device and you have one available, I encourage you to grab it. It'll make this process just a little smoother and easier for you. We're gonna do effectively a live quiz show. So there will be a question screen and an answer screen. You can leave the presentation up and that's where you'll see the questions, but your second device will be used to provide answers. Here's a photo that kind of shows you what I'm talking about here. So on the left, you can see a smartphone and it's just got colored rectangles. And those rectangles correspond to the answers that are shown on the screen on the right. And that would be your Zoom window. You'll be able to see the question, the photo, the time left, and all the answers in the photo or in the Zoom window. So without further ado then, I'm going to get this game started. I'll ask you to navigate to kahoot.it. And Nick, if you wouldn't mind dropping that in the chat. I'm going to start a new screen share. And so once you get to kahoot.it, just enter this PIN that it shows at the top of the screen here, 319627-0, and that'll let you log into our Kahoot game. Can I ask, how's the volume on this? Is it a little loud? Turn it down a bit. All right, people are coming in now. This is really good news for me. It means that some folks have figured it out. I love the name generator it has. We've got red wombat, golden shark, charming deer, smart llama, wise lemur, wonder hare, dynamic condor, friendly otter, smooth urchin. Oh wow, diplomat fox. This is going to be a busy game, folks. 10 of you so far. All right, we'll give it another 60 seconds or so. Is anyone still waiting to get in or having any trouble? All right, this might be our full complement. Some chats popping up here. I actually can't access the chat window at the moment, so Nick, I'll just ask you to relay anything. All right, let's get started. It's Kahoot time. Lower Mainland's Most Wanted was the name of a presentation I did a while ago, and we thought this Kahoot was pretty good. So first question, what does ISCBC stand for? Is it Incredible Stacks of Cash for Buying Cats, the International Standards Council for Biological Controls, the Invasive Species Council of British Columbia, or Isolated Souls Create Bold Connections? 5 answers, 6 answers, 8. Well, the answer's right up on the screen now. Good job, okay. This one was a softball. I'm glad everyone could, or a soft pitch, that you could get it. And that's correct. We are the Invasive Species Council of British Columbia. Friendly Otter was the quickest off the draw there. So it's not only about getting the right answer here, it's also about answering quickly. But we'll see that once we've had a few questions, you can get answer streaks, and that's where the real points come in. Next question is a true or false. The spread of invasive species is mostly natural, and humans do not play an important role. True or false? Humans are not an important way that invasive species spread. So most of you got false, and that's correct. We are the primary way that invasive species spread. Once something's in an area, they can spread, you know, birds or other animals can pick it up, or maybe it's blown on the wind. But for something like Himalayan blackberry to get to North America, that's a human impact, to be sure. Okay, Wise Lemur took the lead there. Smart Llama and Golden Shark coming in second and third. Looks like things are pretty tight with the scores still. Question 3, what characteristics of an invasive species do you see here? So there is some fur, and there are little burdock seeds stuck in that fur. Your answer options are rapid reproduction, easy to transport, grow in disturbed areas, or few predators, diseases, or parasites. And, all right, most of you got easy to transport. That's right. So you may rapid reproduction is also a pretty good answer. Here you can see that that's a lot of seeds stuck to one dog, but the main point being that they've got these little hooks on the seed that make them very easy to transport. And I'll show you the photo again so you can see what I'm talking about here. Smart Llama's on a streak. Yeah, doing justice to the name of Smart Llama, but Wise Lemur still in first, and now Red Wombat in second, and Golden Shark in third. So this is just a fun fact about those burdock seeds, that they are the natural inspiration for Velcro. And hopefully you can see on your screen there, there's little hooks at the end of each burdock. And that's that hook and loop design for Velcro was inspired by nature. Next question is true or false? It's a photo of a plant, and this plant is invasive. True or false? It's mostly found in the Lower Mainland, in forests, this plant. So I apologize for those of you coming, well, actually, I bet you it's on the island as well. I saw we had some folks from the island. But if you're coming to us from the Caribou, then sorry. Excellent. So that is a sword fern. It's a common native fern down here in the Lower Mainland. Wise Lemur is maintaining that lead now, and things are starting to spread out a little bit. Red Wombat, Golden Shark, second and third. So if you think you found an invasive plant, animal, insect, or fungus, what should you do? Adopt it and keep it safe? Stand out on your street and shout about it? Report it using the Report Invasives BC app? Or destroy it? All the answers there. Excellent. Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about the app later, and I'm glad that everyone is aware that you should not adopt it, certainly, and without sort of qualified support, you shouldn't try to go out and destroy invasive plants, animals, insects, or fungus. And of course, you know, you can go out and shout on your street anytime, but I don't think it's going to do much for invasive species. Diplomat Fox, moving up the ranks here, and 7 players now have 5 correct answers in a row. Well done, everyone. Okay, here's a little poll. No points to be won or lost here, but just the question, do you think invasive species affect you? I don't know why I chose this. She looks like maybe a ballerina or a dancer, but yeah, we had some great stock photos to use with this, so I don't know enough. I want to learn more. No or yes are your answers. Excellent. So some of you believe that invasive species affect you, and some of you want to learn more. Well, I have great news. We're about to teach you a little more about invasive species here. Okay, question 8. A species that is not invasive, but also is not from here, is known as non-invasive, superplant, non-native, or invasive. So this is a trickier one. This one might throw you off a little bit. We see some tulips in this image. Tulips are not native to North America. Excellent. Okay, so the curveball that I threw here is non-invasive versus non-native. Of course, all native plants are also non-invasive, so that doesn't quite capture what we're looking for. Non-native is a good way to describe a plant like a tomato or a tulip that's not from here, but also is not invasive. Okay, that mixed up the lead a bit. So we've got wise lemur, golden shark, and diplomat fox. The same 5 people, I think, are now on 6 in a row. Second to last question, true or false? An invasive species can be found in the middle of an undisturbed forest. A beautiful photo, I think, of some broccoli, or it's an overhead drone photo of a forest. I'm not sure. It is true that you can find invasive species in the middle of a forest. So if you imagine something like English holly, it has very delicious berries. If it's growing on the forest edge, a bird comes and eats one of those berries, flies over the woods and poops that berry into the forest. It might grow 100 kilometers from the closest holly. So it is still possible. And finally, oh yeah, this is what I just said. So here's beautiful English holly. You might have seen it from Christmas wreaths, but birds and other animals can transport these once they're established. So without further ado, let's see. Diplomat Fox in 3rd place, 5,199 points. Golden Shark in 2nd, 5,318, and Wise Lemur, well done. That's great. Thanks so much, everyone, for taking part in this Kahoot. 80% correct. Every question was answered correctly by most players. Well done. All right, so at this point, I'd like to hand things over to my colleague, Nick, to tell you a little more about beetles, wasps, and the other thing. The crab. Thanks, Nick.
See the screen okay?
Looks good.
Yeah, okay. Right, so moving right along here. So just want to present the idea of good bugs and bad bugs. So good bugs, I also mean sort of beneficial bugs. So what would we consider those? So we would maybe think about some pollinators, so bees and butterflies. We can also think about dragonflies who will eat mosquitoes and their larvae. And then we've also got these little parasitoid wasps that scientists use for biocontrol of other bad insects. So there's some examples of good bugs. What about some bad bugs? So they could be things that bite or sting, like European fire ants. We have some of those in some regions of BC. We've also got things that can eat wood and destroy trees, like the emerald ash borer. It's not in BC yet, but basically they kill ash trees by feeding and disrupting the flow of nutrients and water. And then we also have another pest that's become quite common in the lower mainland now. They could eat crops or plants that humans like to eat. So this is the brown marmorated stink bug. And they make orchard fruit really unappealing to eat. So they have this long proboscis that it sticks into the fruit and creates really, really ugly fruit. But the bad bug I want to talk about now is called the Japanese beetle, and it's also called Popillia japonica. So it's an insect that invaded sort of downtown Vancouver in 2017, and we've been trying to get rid of it ever since. So it actually belongs to one of the biggest beetle families, and there's some really cool species in there. And they're part of the scarab beetles. So that includes the dung beetles, some really crazy rhinoceros and elephant and Neptune beetles with some really big horns. And there's two other ones that you may be more familiar with on this page, the 10-line June beetle, which is native to BC, and the European chafer beetle, especially if you're in the lower mainland. This is another invasive species. So, as you can tell by the name, it's originally from Japan. And so the adult beetles, which you see in front of you, are not very, they're only about 1 centimeter long and oval shaped. They've got these two brown ridged wing covers called elytra. They're metallic green, sort of emerald green. And they've got spikes on their legs, and they're sort of flattened bits. So the spikes are to hold on to things when they're trying to hitchhike or when they're mating. And the flat paddly bits are to help them dig through the soil when they go to lay their eggs. But the key feature we're looking at these beetles are these 6 tufts of hair on the side of the abdomen. These are the key defining feature, and nothing in BC is no beetle is going to actually have those. So that's what you're really looking out for. So why are they so bad? From the pictures, I think you can guess, but the adult beetles eat the above ground plant parts of over 300 different species. So that includes all the things we like to eat, like blueberries and raspberries and stone fruits like peaches and apples and that sort of thing. Also corn, but they also like to eat the things we love all the flowers we love in our gardens. So their favorite food is actually roses. So that's the best place to look. If you have roses in your garden, best spot to look for potential beetles. So on top of doing all the damage as adult beetles, they can also do a lot of damage as larvae. So the larvae live under the grass and eat the roots of the grass. And you'll probably notice a lot of times there's skunks or crows or raccoons pulling up the grass. They're after these little larvae. So the Japanese beetle itself has the egg on the left. There's 3 stages of larvae, pupa, and then the adult there. So just go through a quick little life cycle of the beetle. So in summer, basically, when temperatures are above 21 degrees Celsius, the beetles are out feeding and sort of mating, I guess. And after they mated, the females dig into the soil and lay their eggs. As fall progresses, so we're moving towards winter, the larvae dig deeper into the soil so they don't freeze. And then as we move along, temperatures start to warm up again. The larvae continue feeding on the roots of the grass. It pupates, and then the adults emerge all over again. So it's a 1-year cycle, basically. So what's happening in Vancouver? I'm sure some of you have probably seen these traps around the city, and these traps are used so the scientists can find out where the beetle is and if it's moving. And these traps are checked many times throughout the year. So these beetles actually love the traps, and I'll tell you why. So how do bugs communicate with each other? They do it in a lot of different ways. So there's things like crickets, they use sound. Some things use light. So this is a firefly. We don't have them in BC, but and out in Ontario, where I'm from, they have them there, and they see them at night floating around. It's very cool. Bees dance and they waggle and they talk to each other with body movements. And then some things use chemicals. A lot of bugs use chemicals to signal members of the same species or different ones, or they can even detect chemicals released by a plant. So that's kind of using chemicals is how the traps are working. So basically in these traps, there's two chemicals in there attracting the beetles. So there's a chemical released by females during mating, and then there's a chemical produced from flowers. So the beetles get tricked into thinking there's a chance to mate and to eat. So then the beetles fly into the top, and then they fall into the trap in the bottom and they can't get out. And so the government scientists record all of this information and put it on a map. So just want to quickly review the beetle here. And if you happen to see one outside of the downtown area, we would really like help reporting these. So Corbin will tell us how to report towards the end of the presentation. But the good news is we've been trying to eradicate this beetle for the last 2 years, and the numbers are getting lower and lower every year. So that's really great news. So as just a quick reminder, it's these 6 tufts of hair are the defining feature. I can stop and perhaps answer some beetle questions if there are any, or shall I keep going? What do you think?
No questions in the chat as of
Okay.
yet.
Okay, I'll keep going then. So now we're going to move from beetles to hornets. So 2020 this year has been quite crazy, and in the news it's also they really got hold of this Asian Giant Hornet story. But unfortunately, one of the newspapers used quite a unfriendly and not very helpful term. So they called them murder hornets. And so it's not really a useful thing for people to use, because it basically makes people really scared. And the scientific community and the people studying bees and hornets say that it's not very helpful. So if you talk about these Asian giant hornets with your friends or family, avoid the term murder hornet. So they belong to the vespids, which are also the wasps and the yellow jackets. But the thing is, with these guys, they are significantly larger. So this is on the left is just one of your sort of normal bumblebees, which still look pretty big. But in comparison, the Asian giant hornets are really large. They tend to be orange rather than yellow, which you can see. They have a really big head with really big jaws and really big eyes, and they actually kind of sound like a hummingbird. So the workers are almost about 3.5 centimeters long, which is pretty big. And then the queens, which are usually bigger, with all vespids and bees and stuff, can be up to about 4.5 centimeters. And unlike sort of other wasps and things, they don't make a paper nest, so you're not going to see them up in a tree on a nest or on the side of your house. They actually nest in the ground, usually nest in the ground. And the really bad thing about these guys is they're predators of social insects. So bees are their prey species. So as if bees don't have it bad enough, you'll probably have heard about certain pesticides are really bad for bees. And if these big hornets were to establish in BC, it wouldn't be good for our Western honeybees. So as you will recall earlier, Corbin mentioned that sort of with invasive species in their native range, they're not invasive because there's things keeping them in check and in balance. So other predators and diseases and climate and that sort of thing. So in Asia, the Asian honeybees have this amazing behavior where they swarm the hornet when they come into the nest, and they all beat their wings at the same time and basically raise the temperature and kind of almost cook the hornet. So I'll just show a short video here. But the thing is, the bees we have here, the Western honeybees, don't know this behavior. So they would be in trouble, potentially.
The bees hang fire. Then one is caught. It's the signal the others have been waiting for. Surrounded by vibrating bodies, the hornet at the core of the bee ball begins to overheat. The bees have the advantage, a heat tolerance 2 degrees above that of their enemy. At 46 degrees Celsius, the aggressor is roasted alive. The wild bees have spent millions of years living with the enemy. That's why they alone have developed this extraordinary survival strategy.
So I think that's pretty amazing stuff. I don't know about you guys. So, sorry, just gonna get... So just to give a bit of a timeline of what's been going on here. So the first nests that we heard about, for these hornets was actually last year in Nanaimo. A nest was destroyed by beekeepers there. And there's actually a really fantastic video on the internet if you search Nanaimo and Asian Giant Hornet. Anyway, I'll let you guys look at that. But so there were a couple specimens seen and viewed last year. And then sort of once May hit, there was some more popping up around, primarily in sort of northern Washington, around Bellingham and Blaine, just over the border. So the last report that we've had in Canada was in Langley on May 15th. So nothing since. The more exciting stuff has been happening in Washington, I guess in September, where they actually caught the first live Asian hornet in Washington. Then they actually caught another one in October, another live one. And then actually yesterday, they were able to tag a hornet, follow it back to its nest. And then this morning it was destroyed by the Washington State of Agriculture. So I can send you a couple more or tell you about some more links in a bit, but this is just an example of someone actually saw one on the doorbell camera in Washington. So that was a report someone sent in. So I get to take a lot of phone calls and emails of people reporting potential Asian giant hornets in BC. So I just wanted to share some of the species that people have been reporting. All of these are pretty harmless. So yeah, if you do see any of these, you don't need to worry. So we've got the bald-faced hornet. These guys are still quite a bit large, but they kind of look white rather than yellow. The common Western yellow jacket, they're more or less everywhere, not nearly the same size. We've got the elm sawfly, which is a fly and not a wasp. They can be quite large. We've also got a really strange looking beetle here. It's called the lion longhorned beetle. And then finally, probably the most common one it's called the horntail or the wood wasp. And I think they're reported most often because they are orange and they are quite large, and they have this little ovipositor on the bottom that actually looks like a stinger. So they're kind of scary to look at, but harmless. So what's been happening in BC? So you'll notice all these little red pins on the map. These are all Asian giant hornet traps that the scientists and beekeepers have been setting. So they're basically, we've been asking people in Surrey, White Rock, Langley, and Aldergrove to really keep an eye out for these hornets and to report anything. So like I said, there hasn't been any positive confirmed sightings in Canada since May. So that is good news. Now, just moving on to what's happening in Washington. So I said there were some specimens actually caught live in September and October. And so they actually tried to stick a little radio tag or a way to track them. So unfortunately, the first time they used some glue that actually got stuck on the hornet's wing, so it couldn't fly. The second time they caught one in September, they used dental floss. So they tied the little tracker to the hornet with dental floss and then tried to follow the hornet. But unfortunately, they lost it when they got into the woods. But more recently, they successfully followed one back, the one that they found yesterday. And I know how I said that they usually nest in the ground, but this one was actually nesting in a dead tree. So yeah, just speaking to yesterday. So this is from the Washington State of Agriculture's Facebook webpage. They have videos of it. And so they just basically used a vacuum and sucked all the Asian giant hornets up. Yeah, so check out their Facebook page. There's some really cool videos on there from this morning. Okay, so I'm going to quickly switch gears completely to the marine realm, and the one that I am most comfortable with. I studied crabs, so it's my thing. But yeah, the European green crab. So it's one of the world's worst invasive species, and seems to be spreading a little bit in BC. It's native to Europe and North Africa, and it first arrived in North America over 100 years ago, but on the East Coast. And it's not a very large crab. It's only about 10 centimeters across the carapace width. So that's basically across the back. So the European green crab, Carcinus maenas. So despite the name, it can be a variety of colors, not just green. So it can be olive, red, yellow, black, brown, you name it, basically. How are we identifying these? So color is not the best way to ID them. So thinking about size, they're about 10 centimeters across. And then when you look at the spines on either side of the eyes are here, and in between there's 5 on the sides and 3 in the middle. So those are some indicative features of these guys. So what makes them such good invasive species, and why are they so bad? So they have really high fecundity. So fecundity meaning they can produce a lot of babies. So on the top left picture, you can see a female crab with she's holding her eggs at the bottom. A female can produce up to 200,000 eggs at a time, and they can do this multiple times a year. So can you imagine making 400,000 babies in 1 year? That's pretty crazy. So after these babies sort of develop, there's 2 larval stages. So there's the zoea, which is this neat little one here, and the megalopa. And these guys are essentially can drift through ocean currents for up to 90 days. So they can be potentially around floating in the ocean for a long time. And that's sort of one thing that makes them a good invasive, because they can spread easily. They also eat just about anything they can get their little crabs on. Clams, other crabs, yeah, vegetation, eelgrass, and on the bottom right you see a crab pulling out this eelgrass. And eelgrass is a really important sort of ecosystem as like a nursery habitat for other species. And most lobsters and crabs, so if you see them in the grocery store or the seafood market, they all have elastic bands on their claws. That's because they're cannibals and they'll eat each other. Whereas the European green crabs, as you can see in the middle, they don't really mind hanging out with each other. And so they're very happy. So they can reach really large numbers. So that these are all the main reasons why the European green crab is so bad. So it's basically on every continent apart from the Arctic and Antarctica. And like I said, they're mainly spreading around through this larval transport in the water. So I said it was on the East Coast about 100 years ago. Well, it was introduced to the West Coast in San Francisco Bay in 1989, about 30 years ago. And this is probably through like when someone transported seafood. So they accidentally sent it along to this side of the world. So now what's happening with the green crab in BC? Well, on the left-hand side, it's a bit of an older map now, but you can see the different areas where the green crab is. So it's along the entire west coast of the island and a couple spots in the central coast. But now, unfortunately, they've also detected them in Haida Gwaii and more recently in Delta and in Blackheath Spit in South Surrey. But how did they actually get up here? So I don't know if any of you have heard of El Nino, but basically some sort of weather conditions made the water temperatures a bit warmer back in the 1990s, and it basically allowed the crabs to move further north from United States, and it made the conditions more enabling them to survive in some of these little harbors and bays along the island. So yeah, so I'd love to throw it back to Corbin here to do a little Kahoot, and then we'll briefly touch on how you can report all of these species.
Thanks so much, Nick. And I just wanted to flag that we're running a couple of minutes behind our planned schedule here. So if anyone has to leave right at noon, no problem. And if those of you who have 10 or 15 extra minutes, we'll be able to do a Q&A and get through the rest of our slides and everything. But without further ado, I'd like to begin our next Kahoot. We can review all this great information that Nick has shared. And I did notice as well, I want to apologize, some people weren't able to join the first one because they don't have a second device. So you can open an internet browser, as long as you can see your web browser and Zoom at the same time, you should be able to play along with us. You don't need a second device. It does just make things a little easier. So let's Kahoot again. Please head back to kahoot.it and use the pin 4252766. And we'll wait a couple minutes. You'll get a new name here, so we'll see if we got any clever emus or genius foxes or rockstar panda, genius finch, winged duck. Well, winged duck, naturally. Super ferret, cute finch. Oh, we got two finches. Silver impala, lucky shark, do-do-do-do. Elated wildcat. Wildcat having an excellent day. A brave pigeon. Most of them are pretty brave, especially if you live in the city of Vancouver like I do. Legend quail. The quail that will bring balance to the force. I believe we had 11 last time. Awesome gator. And I'll just leave it for 10 more seconds or so. Let's check the chat here. Anyone having trouble getting in? Okay. All right, aware that we're short on time, I'm gonna move ahead with this. I apologize if you're having any technical Issues. Beetles, hornets, and crabs is our topic here, so I hope you were paying attention for Nick's presentation. We'll start with true or false. Green crabs are always green. Again, we're starting off, not gonna throw the trickiest questions at you yet. Those are still to come. Well done, 100%, that's correct. So green crabs are not a positive ID that this is European green crab. You gotta look a little closer. Well done, winged duck. You beat Rockstar Panda by 5 points, which I think is like 5/100ths of a second. So cool. How many tufts of hair does the Japanese beetle have on each side? 4, 5, 6, or 7? You might see them in the photo, you might not. I chose one where it's a little bit harder to count. Excellent. Okay, so most of you got 6. That's correct. So if you look at the photo, there are 5 distinct tufts of hair along the side and then a 6th one on the beetle bum. And Rockstar Panda was slightly quicker on the draw this time. Elated Wildcat and Winged Duck are tied for 2nd. That doesn't happen very often. Brave Pigeon just moved up 4 places, so well done. True or false, the biggest risk with Asian giant hornets is their deadly sting. Beautiful macro photo here. I think a photo like this one takes hundreds of hours to put together. It's made of many different photos stitched together. And you can see their compound eyes, very different eyes than humans have on insects. That's correct. So this is just to get back at Nick's point that people like to call them murder hornets, but this certainly is not the thing that we create a bit of hysteria where people go out and they're mean to any bee they see. So please do not be concerned about the deadly sting. Elated Wildcat in first, well done. And Super Ferret now on a streak, living up to that Super Ferret name. Question 4 is also true or false. Asian giant hornets are the world's smallest hornet. I love the stock photos they have on Kahoot. Every once in a while you find something really silly like this. I hope this wasp enjoys a cheeseburger. World's smallest hornet. Correct. False is correct. They are the world's largest hornet, in fact. As you can see, here's one next to a small toy cheeseburger. Wow, Rockstar Panda, well done. You are 4 in a row and moved into first, but we're still the top 3. Anyone can take it, and all it takes is one wrong answer to switch things up. So here's a multiple choice. Asian giant hornets attack which insects? Bees and wasps, moths, spiders, or beetles? Excellent. Okay, there was a pretty good hint in the old photo there. That is a wasp's nest, I believe, with an Asian giant hornet on it. Awesome. Okay, no changes there. That was a everyone got it right question. Japanese beetle traps use color, smell, and sound to attract beetles. True or false? And here is a beetle trap in the city of Vancouver. Information card to let people know what it is and why they should leave it alone. So if you do see these traps, please do not disturb them. So I tricked you a little bit here. I included sound, but the traps only use color and smell. They do not use sound to attract the beetles. So that one was a little tougher, definitely, but we still got folks in the top 3, so well done. Not too much changing there, but Silver Impala on the way up, and Super Ferret with 6 in a row. Okay, European green crabs are native to which ocean? Here's a picture of a green crab. I don't know if this is a European green crab or not, though. The answers are Arctic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, or Indian Ocean. Where are European green crabs native? That's right, the Atlantic Ocean. So the Pacific Ocean is in their introduced range, and I believe so is the Indian Ocean. Oh boy, okay. Rockstar Panda running away. Still competition for 2nd place, still competition for 3rd. True or false? Second to last question. Japanese beetles prefer hot, sunny days. Now this one's actually going to be tricky because I don't know if we covered this in the presentation or not. So best of luck to you. You can see the unique feeding damage that Japanese beetles have there. So the correct answer was true. They tend to be more active on sunny days when the temperature is above about 20 or 22 Celsius, I believe. Maybe Nick can clarify there. But anyhow, aha, see, third place, Brave Pigeon, moving up. Cute Finch with a pretty good second place there, and Rockstar Panda looking comfortable in first, like a rock star. Final question, true or false? European green crabs have been found in BC. Beautiful photo of a coastal island with our characteristic BC fog and clouds. Sunny day today though, I'm actually looking forward to getting outside later. European green crabs have been found in BC, true or false? It is true, yes. So we are currently on the alert, looking out for them and trying to determine where in BC they can be found. So third place, 8 out of 9 correct. Super Ferret doing a super job. Second place, 9 out of 9, Cute Finch. In first place, not only 9 out of 9 correct, but quick on the draw, Rockstar Panda. I hope everyone enjoyed our little cahoots here. Let's return to our PowerPoint. And Nick has said 21 degrees Celsius and above is when the beetles are active. So just pulling up my PowerPoint here. And I wanted to thank, I believe it was Rebecca earlier, for asking how you can help when it comes to Japanese beetles. So we'll answer that question more directly now. With any invasive species, it's best to be educated, to inform yourself a little bit more about what invasive species are out there. At the same time, too, it's good to be in touch with your local ecosystem. So spend time in your backyard, spend time at your favorite park, and don't just go there for a walk. Really, use all of your senses while you're there. Smell things. I don't recommend tasting anything, but certainly listen and look closely. You don't have to bring a magnifying glass, but those young folks look like they're having a good time to me. And if you do see anything, we would rather have a report of something that turns out not to be invasive than to miss a report of something that is invasive. So if you do see something, report it, and I'll tell you how you can do that. You can also become an ambassador for us as well and tell your friends and family about invasive species. Always helpful. So when it comes to, I believe the next slide is on reporting here, Japanese beetle, you can report to the Canada Food Inspection Agency. So that is a federal government body. Here's a phone number and an email. I'm unsure if we're sending these slides around afterwards, but I certainly think we could, so that you can have this information. The Asian Giant Hornet, you can report at info@bcinvasives.ca or the listed phone number. And then European green crab, you want to email Fisheries and Oceans Canada. So these are the specific agencies that are responsible for these different invasive species, but you can report all of them through a phone app as well. So we have the Report Invasives app. It's on Android and on Apple. So either way, you're covered. You can find it in the Play Store or the App Store, depending on which ecosystem you're in. And it has photos and other information that'll help you determine whether or not you're looking at something invasive, as well as a reporting system that goes directly to a real live person who will forward your report to the appropriate government scientist to follow up on it. So this is not just an app where you tap some information in and it goes into a database somewhere. Every time you make a report with this, someone gets an email and things set in motion. So it's a great way to get a response if you have a species of concern in your neighborhood. And just 1 minute over time, actually. So I'm really pleased. Thank you so much, everyone, for sticking with me for and with us for the extra minute. I would love to take your questions, and I believe Nick would as well. Chat box is okay, or feel free to unmute as well. And excellent. So the recording will be posted on the YouTube site, and you'll be able to get any specific information out of this presentation. No questions so far, but plenty of gratitude from our audience. And I just want to turn that back on you and say thank you so much for your attention and for participating. The Kahoots are always fun to put on too, not just to take part in. So really appreciate you guys and your quick draw answers there. All right.
Wow, guys, thank you so much. That was amazing. I know that I certainly learned a lot, and yeah, just so many cool things about insects and crabs in general, and then what to look out for. Yeah, so we will be posting this recording, and we will share all of the links that Nick and Corbin put up so that you have them if you want to do your own reporting or go out and do a little bit of your own citizen science out in your backyard. So thanks so much, you two, and to the council for for partnering with us, and thanks to everybody for joining us from all over BC. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks so much for having us.
Artist Franny.